Assalomu alaykum, hurmatli tinglovchilar. Kasbga yo'naltirilgan ingliz tilini o'qitish, ya'ni ESP fanida navbatdagi ma'ruzamizni boshlaymiz. Hozir bugungi mavzumiz What is English medium instruction? Today's topic is about EMI, in other words, English medium instruction. Today's outline consists of several parts. First of all, we should talk about advantage of the English for specific purposes approach. Then we will talk about EMI itself. The third is the difference between teaching a discipline in your native language and teaching EMI. Next one is teaching strategies in the EMI format. First one is language, second one is how to convey information, the third is material, and the last one is we will talk about support. So what is EMI itself? EMI stands for English Medium Instruction. It is a method of using English to teach academic subjects in countries and regions where English is not the national language. The use of EMI has a number of advantages both for teachers and students, universities as a whole. Thus, students gain access to international educational programs, become more competitive in the labor market. For universities, in its turn, the use of EMI increases quotability in world rankings, helps to attract foreign students, and also brings economic benefits for universities. So first of all, we should talk about advantage of the English for specific purposes approach. Firstly, it's the main goal. It meets the needs of students. Then it uses educational methodologies and activities of those disciplines for which it is studied. Then it focused on the language corresponding to the activity from the standard of grammar, vocabulary, register, learning skills, discourse, and genre. It can be designed for specific disciplines also. It can use a methodology that differs from methodology of teaching general English or English for general purposes, mainly developed for students who speak the language at levels above intermediate. It also assumes that students have basic knowledge of the language system. Thus, the main goal of ESP is the formation of language and speech skills necessary for professional activity in a particular field. However, teaching in the EMI format is associated with a number of problems. Often, the level of language proficiency of both students and teachers is not high enough for the learner's process to be carried out at the level. In addition, students are often dissatisfied with the fact that they have to study a subject in English, whereas it can be studied in the native language. It should also be borne in mind that preparing for classes on both sides will take much longer. And of course, the translation of educational material into English also takes a long time, so it is time-consuming. Next, we'll talk about teaching strategies in the EMI format. Considering all the difficulties faced by both students and teachers, it is necessary to use some rules that will make the learning process more effective. Obviously, it will not work to teach the discipline in English in the same format as in their native language, since students cannot perceive the teaching material equally quickly. That is why every tutor who teaches in English, experts say, should work out several directions. Now we should talk about the difference between teaching a discipline in a native language and teaching EMI. When teaching takes place in the native language, the lecturer feels more confident, students have time to make the notes they need, and accordingly, they have much more materials on their hands than in the case of studying the discipline in English, where the students often concentrate on the language itself and not on the subject. Learning in the EMI format makes students nervous because often they do not have enough experience in expressing complex ideas in a foreign language, and they need language support during the lecture. In addition, if a student begins to take notes of a lecture in English, he is distracted from the content of the course. Teachers themselves may feel uncomfortable since the level of proficiency in a foreign scientific language is always different from their native one. It is also much more difficult to find study materials for students. Now we will talk about how should teacher use language during EMI lectures. Firstly, you can mix languages English and native. The most important thing is that students can learn the discipline without waiting only for legitimate within the format of teaching. Secondly, teachers should simplify sentences. Complex constructions confuse students and distract from the content of the lecture. Thirdly, teachers should place accents, pointing out the most important parts of the material being presented. If necessary, teachers should rephrase the sentence or phrase so that students understand teachers' words. And the last one, teachers should try to present complex topics, terms or problems in several ways so that students have the opportunity to choose the right one for themselves. And the last one is material. Since students themselves rarely take notes in English, teachers should prepare handouts for them with the main thesis and terms. Secondly, teachers should try to distribute materials before class so that students have time to formulate questions. And the last one is, teachers should make a separate list with the meanings of the terms. So, in conclusion, we can say that EMI, in other words, English Medium Instruction, stands for main goal of ESP in the formation of language and speech skills necessary for professional activity in a particular professional field. Hurmatli tinglovchilar, shu bilan bugungi ma'ruzamiz nihoyasiga yetdi. Keyingi ma'ruzalarda ko'rishguncha xayr, sog' bo'ling.